There's no better feeling than a personal win, and the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and this is a special episode as we at Sox Machine launch the Offseason Plan Project for the upcoming 2025 season. It's your turn to play general manager of the Chicago White Sox. And in this podcast, we will walk you through the same decisions Chris Getz will have to make this offseason. Arbitration cases, impending free agents, trade situations, and possible free agent targets. We'll also share what the offseason plan project budget is for this year, so you can start working on your offseason plans and get them ready to post on SoxMachine.com. Joining me as guides are Sox Machine's managing editor Jim Margulis and beat reporter James Fegan. And hello, gents. It's off-season plan project time, that wonderful activity to distract us in October and November, Jim. It's a glorious time.
Yes, and this season the anticipation is impalpable.
Sure is.
Everybody can't wait to wrestle with a payroll that hasn't been seen in a number of years and no real long-term solutions currently on the 26-man roster. Great times all around.
Truly a blank canvas to be as creative as possible.
In a bunch of dried paints. All the paints have been left out, uncapped. You have to add water to them, try to smash them around to try to get anything to work with. It's really great.
James, this is your first Sox Machine off-season plan project with us. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being, oh man, this team is already a World Series contender and building an off-season plan project would be easy, to a 5 being, oh my goodness, you have to be crazy just to try and come up with a plan. Where would you rank this offseason in playing pretend general manager for the Chicago White Sox?
To put it this way, I am fleeing the country by the end of the week rather than take part. I think if there's not interest in this, an alternate possibility to put people in like the chair of like Chris Getz is to build like a SimCity like simulator, but we're just like you're just building in the Dominican Academy and you have to like build like the water line and water the grass so it doesn't go bad.
You have the tax guy yelling at you, the finance guy.
Yeah.
You're going way over budget. People are going to vote you out next time they get a chance.
There's no money to pave roads to the academy.
Oh, that would be a great simulator. We should work on that. How's everyone's Flash skills? Do people still use Flash to make simulators?
New ideas are being embraced at 35th and Shield.
Well, to get you started with your off-season plan projects, here is how the White Sox payroll breaks down. The obligations right now for the White Sox, they just have 6 players under obligation, $32.1 million. There are 2 players with club options. If you pick up both options, that's another $32.5 million to the player payroll. If you buy them out, it's $5.5 million. So it's either one of those 2 numbers or something in between if you pick up one and not the other. ARB-eligible players, possible $22.9 million to 9 players as we use the MLB trade rumors projections. Retained salaries, John Bravey is getting $1.5 million, so you have to add that $1.5 million to your budget, whether you like it or not. And deferred salaries, Jose Abreu's getting $1 million. Liam Hendriks gets $1.5 million. So you got to add that to your payroll as well. So, Jim, as you are going to write for SoxMachine.com for everything getting set up before people copy and paste below the dotted line, the max salary before trades and free agents is $98.34 million when you fill out the rest of the roster with minimum league salaries. So what are you putting the offseason plan project budget for this exercise?
I'm putting it way too high for a realistic simulation in all likelihood. But what I'm going to do, and here's my rationale, is in order to make it, one, somewhat enjoyable, or as like enjoyable as I can possibly make it while being somewhat realistic, and also to not like condone the White Sox having a payroll below 100 million because like they're in Chicago, for Christ's sakes. Like they should be able to carry some kind of payroll that would like fit in when adjusted for inflation with like what they're spending in the 2000s. I think that's realistic. I'm going to set the budget at $113 million for a 26-man roster because that was last year's 26-man opening day roster. And I figure the exercise being, okay, now that you have, in all likelihood, and people can, agree to disagree in terms of like if they want to, exercise the option for Yoan Moncada, they can, if they want to like set the difficulty level, like accidentally hitting the button for, pick it up. And all of a sudden you have Yoan Moncada's $25 million salary in your books. Like, all right, you're doing the Oregon Trail on, what was I'm trying to think of the most severe mode. Was it Farmer?
Teacher. The teachers were screwed.
Teacher, yeah. On teacher mode, yes. And
just like Tay.
Yes. I know Banker was the easiest one, yeah. But yeah, so you can do that. But I would assume that, assuming that you're declining Yoan Moncada's option, Eloy Jimenez is off the books. You have some flexibility with first base for the first time in a while. It should be a little bit easier or more fun, more flexible to get to 113 million this time around versus last year. So I figure it'll be a little bit like a mulligan. That Chris gets the same amount of money, or you as Chris gets the same amount of money, and now you can see what you can do with it, free of the obligations that Rick Hahn thought were going to be a huge advantage for him.
Okay, so let's say that's the normal difficulty mode at 113 million. Jim, I would like to introduce a new extreme difficult mode to really challenge those looking to be challenged with this offseason plan project. And I will counter and say on the extreme difficulty, if you decide to challenge yourself, putting it at 80 million for the upcoming player payroll budget for the 2025 White Sox. I could already hear the screaming from our podcast listeners that if the player payroll is 80 million, then they're just going to skip the 2025 season. But James, I feel like it's going to land in between. Is that what you're hearing as well? That the player payroll budget is going to be between 80 to 113 million?
Sure. Yeah, that seems like a fair range. It's expected to go down. There is obligations coming off that, seemingly would mitigate how much you have to cut. But yeah, within that range wouldn't surprise me given, the revenue situation and all their signaling to be at as low as you're talking about being a possibility.
All right, so there you go. So normal, 113 million. The extreme difficulty, if you really want to challenge yourself and probably put yourself closer to where the White Sox may end up.
Picking up Moncada should definitely trigger like the Sim City like budget guy screaming at you on like a page.
So before we get to Yoan Moncada and his club option, the arbitration cases. We've talked about Andrew Vaughn's situation a couple of podcast episodes ago. That's at 6.4 million. I guess what we've done in the past episodes, we kind of went through if we would be picking it up or declining it and having that debate. I still feel, Jim, Andrew Vaughn, the White Sox are going to pick it up. So I think for my offseason plan project, I will also pick it up, but only at $5.5 million. And I wonder if this is going to be like a file and trial situation between the White Sox and Andrew Vaughn. Does that happen often, James? Do they do a lot of file and trials?
I mean, this is a new front office. Like file and trial is like, a policy. But the White Sox. So like the White Sox were a file and trial team under, Hahn. I don't know if I think that goes beyond just Rick's preferences. That was just something that was true for them a while. And like the year where they went to trial with both like obviously Garcia and Yolmer Sanchez like broke, I want to say like a 12 or 13 or 14-year streak. And then Lucas Giolito, I want to say that dispute like almost was a resurgence, but then they wound up resolving it kind of after the deadline to exchange figures in some weird way. After, just kind of some public back and forth about it. So they are a file and trial team in the sense that they don't tend to, that was an exception that they negotiated after the deadline. But it hasn't manifested themselves in them having a lot of trials. It's just the more of we usually reach a deal by then, and then we usually reach a deal by then. It's mostly how the policy works.
Got it.
But it's technically a file and trial approach because the times where they've gone over, there was one where Lucas, where it was kind of coming out of the lockout, and there was weird exceptions to it for why it was kind of a rush case. At least that was the White Sox side of it. Whereas Lucas's camp was about they just acted weird, and that's why we didn't get a deal. Otherwise, they tend to avoid that type of show, but they are a file and trial team.
Okay, got it. So for me, if I was Chris Getz, I would file with Vaughn at $5.5 million. You could take it, or I'll see you in arbitration.
In court.
See you in court. How you feeling, Jim, about Vaughn? I think this is the one where after we get all the offseason plan projects, it wouldn't be surprised if it's a 50-50 split that it gets picked up.
Yeah, I think maybe Sox Machine readers might be different, and it might be like maybe 40-60 gets picked up. That just because, think we've written plenty about his limitations and just how it seems like the breakout that makes him a college best in class type performance in the major leagues. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Like, it doesn't seem like he has the physical skills to hit as many homers or draw as many walks as expected out of Cal. So I might think it drifts below the 50% mark, but I think, when I look at it, it's more a matter of like, is it a choose your first baseman and choose your relievers versus like, I think we could see like a pretty wide array of which relievers get picked up because there are a bunch of relievers. And also like, there are a couple different approaches to use with first baseman, given that Vaughn's more expensive than Sheets, given that Vaughn is righty, Sheets is a lefty. Like, you could theoretically, as much as Vaughn has outproduced Sheets, you can maybe talk yourself into Sheets being a better complement for who's already on the roster if you want to really cut corners with the incumbent talent at first base. So like, there are ways to talk yourself into either first baseman. So I'm curious to see like which first baseman get picked up more, which relievers are preferred, because they're all kind of hovering around the same price between $1 and $2 million. And like how many people are just going to say, not tender them all. I'll come up with a whole, deal me a new hand of relievers, basically an entirely new hand. And we'll see what happens.
Because going down my list, like Nicky Lopez at $5.1 million, no. It's been fun, Nicky. We'll always remember 2024. Garrett Crochet, no-brainer. Gavin Sheets right now, I'm going to go non-tender because I picked up Vaughn. De Los Santos, non-tendered. Jimmy Lambert, James mentioned that he had shoulder surgery, so the chances are high that he is not getting tendered by the White Sox. James, I'm picking up the options for my guy, Justin Anderson, and also Steven Wilson. What are you hearing on that front? Like, Wilson got demoted by the White Sox, and I figure for $1 million, you can give him another go-around. Does that seem feasible with the White Sox and Wilson, or is there going to be a parting here?
I think it's feasible. He was certainly didn't know what was going to come by the end of the year. I think it could go either way. I mean, I think in the realm of like, being upside play relievers, he's pretty cheap and under years of control. You'd kind of know why he was messed up mechanically last year. Presumably he has a whole spring and offseason to do what you want rather than like trying to add a splitter, a drive line, and then, struggling with it in spring and then getting traded in the last 2 weeks and just not being like himself when the season started, and then slipping off the mound in New York and tweaking his back and then that coming up again. So like, there are reasons why he had a weird year and wasn't good. If you just feel like, that you struggle with them and couldn't make it click and it's better just try another project, I could see that. But I also don't like, if you think the reasons you traded for him are still legit. Like it's 2 years of control and it's not at or 3 years of control and it's not at a bad price. And why let an asset go? So I lean towards him coming back. I think that makes sense. But I haven't heard like specific Steven Wilson chatter. I know Justin Anderson was a favorite of, he worked really well with Bannister. Bannister helped him with like a sinker grip and he'd like cats. So, and he was healthy and took the ball a lot. So with him also not being expensive, like he's not, it doesn't seem like there's super sky high upside, but also like serviceable innings. He could do it again. It's not a huge raise. I could see him coming back and lean towards it a little bit. With Vaughn, they kind of openly talk about like, it's not like, oh, we really believe in him. It's like, yeah, we know he wasn't good. It's more the talk going forward. But that's not necessarily disqualifying. I kind of more see like it depends on which first baseman they pick. And certainly if you think Sheets is versatile, and you could see like maybe first base being what you use for like where to put Ramos or Vargas, but they're also very like it's still kind of up in the air, like how good or how ready Ramos and Vargas are going to be come spring to take on a role. Like there's a lot Vargas needs to do in the offseason as far as adding strength. And
Lenin Sosa.
There's Sosa. I think that would be another route to like what to do with first base a little bit. I know it sounds silly. But it's also like not a super robust like first base market where like, is it worth it for the organization to like pursue like some sort of like boomer bust, like cheap option, like Bobby Dahlbeck or Joey Gallo, or how much does JD Davis cost in this market? Or is it worth it for like a stopgap that you really don't think there's going to be like a ton of upside, or, you just try to flip at the deadline, like, Rowdy Tellez, Dominic Smith, Mark Canha, who's the other person I'm thinking of, the person who was just used for this purpose by another team. Carlos Santana with the Twins. Does it really make sense for them to reach out for that over like kind of knowing Vaughn will be like, okay, I don't know. And like, given that there's not a ton of studs on that market, will it be a situation where like $5-6 million is the going rate for like a rosterable first baseman already, and then you just stick with Vaughn? So I think it could go either way, but it's certainly not like talking about him like this is going to be our future core piece. He's going to have a big year, which is more the narrative like of him the last like couple of years, where they kind of know like he's been disappointing. So a lot of it I can see going either way. Have fun with it. I'll be in Spain. Or I guess the non-tender deadline's after that. Damn it, I'll have to cover it.
Matt Foster, was he healthy at the end of the year?
He was pitching. He looked really great in 2020 with that like his changeup and tunneling off of his fastball, but other than that, it looks like this is a righty who sits low 90s and has moments of effectiveness, and then a lot of moments of coming out of his mechanics and being erratic and being hittable. So I think especially if you owe him like $1 million, probably on the line of guys where you see more like maybe they outright him and hope they can keep him rather than like give him a couple $100,000 raise.
Yeah. So out of the 9, right now I'm only picking up 4. Vaughn, Crochet, Anderson, and Wilson. That's the route that I am going. Of course, for you listeners, while you're doing your plan projects, you may pick up as many, or maybe you be bold and not pick up anyone and really start off with the new roster. Moves us over to club options. You got 2 options here to decide. Yohan Moncada, $25 million for the 2025 season. Maybe you believe in his recent Instagram posts that he's in his prime. Or you could buy out Yohan Moncada for $5 million. And there's also Max Stassi, $7 million for 2025, or a $500,000 buyout. I think this is going to be close to unanimous, Jim, that everyone's going to pick the buyout for both Moncada and Stassi. Can you make the case to pick up either option?
No.
All right.
I'm just picturing like a roster where Moncada and Stassi, like especially in the hard mode, like $32 million of an $80 million payroll are for Moncada and Stassi.
Oh, that'd be great, especially with how things ended. The 2024 season with Moncada rarely playing.
We're going to counseling. Is that what that would say?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So from the club options, pretty easy decisions. The upcoming free agents for the White Sox. They have 3 pending free agents. Michael Soroka, who made $3 million in 2023, Mike Clevenger, and Chris Flexen. I don't know about Soroka, James. Like, what was the vibes with Soroka and the White Sox at the end of the season? Do they think that there's something there as a possible reliever? Because it seemed like he still wanted to start.
Yeah, but he was like, he knew he was throwing like legit well out of the bullpen and like was happy about that. And the last series in Detroit, like there like some scouts in the press box are like, oh, this dude looks good. It kind of makes me think like a team that actually wants to be good item to be like kind of a low cost like upside player and reliever. I it'd be nice if there's some way for the White Sox to benefit from that, but I don't know. It just seems like the guy who was pitching out in short relief over the last like 2 months, when he was healthy, could help a team. So probably, I think the White Sox are probably, not that having Soroka on the team would be bad or not productive or wouldn't be like an asset at the deadline. I don't know if they'd be the high bidder on that, or if just like Soroka wants it, if he's going to be a reliever, would rather like go pitch in like actual leverage. But I think he showed enough where his stuff was looking good. His slider looked really comfortable, and he was sitting mid-90s where he's just going to have a legit market as a reliever. So if that, I wouldn't pick the White Sox to win any bit anymore.
Hey, they did last year.
Like, yes, they'll sign free agents, but like, I don't know if there's like a necessary thing like, well, if not for the White Sox, I won't have a chance, like type of thing. Like, I think Soroka will have suitors. It's not going to be like multi-year deals or like insane, but I think like there'll be a team that like, yeah, our metrics like you, here's a major league contract, and maybe that's where he goes.
I could see like Soroka, I wouldn't bet on it, but I could see like a situation where Soroka gets like 2 years and 20 million, because it's like one of those weird bubbles where like 5 teams are all chasing the same thing. Like Tyler Chatwood, that 1 year where like he got way more than anybody thought, and then like his control collapsed on him, and just he showed why it was teams were trying to buy high while also buying low with Chatwood. And I could see like Soroka doing the same thing where he gets some kind of deal where people who weren't paying attention to the White Sox, God bless them, just say like, why is Soroka getting this? And then, they look into it and say like, oh yeah, I guess he was kind of interesting. So I could see a case where teams that are budget conscious and looking for like a real high leverage type, kind of like the Reynaldo Lopez deal, because the Braves saw him as a starter. And so he got more money than people thought. Like some team searching for like a specific either pitch mix or a case of trying to get one rung up on the leverage ladder without paying for it. I could see like a bunch of teams trying to get on Soroka at a certain price.
See, the scenario I thought was like, there's going to be some report of like 8 teams are interested in Michael Soroka, and people were like, whoa, what the hell is going on? And then it's like, turns out that like 8 really model forward teams that were similar, like computer models, all spit out like, offer him 1 year, $4 million at the same time. And eventually he picked one.
That could be the case too, but yeah. But I could see like a bunch of teams being in on him just because of the way he finished.
He looked good. He was pitching well. I know like every good player on the 24 White Sox, you kind of think like, what's the catch here? But like he was good.
We'll skip over Mike Clevenger. I don't think I'm breaking anyone's hearts by doing that. Chris Flexen, what do you think his market is going to be this upcoming free agent pool?
Probably the same as it was last year. Maybe a little bit better, but also he's a year older. So, perhaps teams saying like, well, his stuff's not going to get any better. Do we really want to, and we might be talking about like maybe increments of like $250,000 in terms of, what they might be arguing over. It seems like that would be the case of teams not being that excited about him, like being a February signing of, we have an injury, somebody isn't healing as fast as we thought, might not be ready for opening day, flexing through 160 innings, and positive reports on him just in terms of like him being around. He did show ability to go to the bullpen and back, so he doesn't need to be getting the ball every 5th day to be the best form of himself. So sure, here's $1.5 million for a guaranteed spot. That kind of strikes me as his market. If he gets better, like good for him. Like he did about as well as he could under the circumstances. I guess like me, ideally he would have been traded for something, but at $1.75 million, if you give him and Paul DeJong similar deals, if you trade one of them, I think you're doing okay.
Are we having people pick a manager, Jim? with the offseason plan projects. As we record this, the White Sox, and I haven't heard anything. I don't think anyone's heard that they are any closer to hiring a manager, but is that an option with this offseason plan project?
Yes. And even if they do hire a manager like a couple days after the project starts, you can either inherit that and say, sure, why not? Or feel free to disagree, like make your own first guess in terms of which candidate would be the better manager. I would say, like, if we find out like Will Venable turns down the White Sox, like the way he turned down the Mets, and looks like he's going to be the heir apparent to Bruce Bochy in Texas, I would say maybe not include him unless you're going to make a contract offer that consumes like 20% of the payroll, which I don't think the White Sox are going to do. So that's maybe the only thing I would abide by is like known candidates that rejected the White Sox because they preferred to stay with their team. Like cases like Donnie Ecker, where it seems like he is out of the running according to Evan Grant of the Dallas News, but it doesn't seem like it's Ecker's choice, more along the lines of he didn't get the job. If you really liked his skill set, by all means, make Donnie Ecker your manager.
I'm assuming that the White Sox will release the press release of who they're hiring as James's plane is rolling into the runway and takes off.
By Wi-Fi.
I think I'm going to be safe. From what I understand, I think it's going to be into the World Series. Going to be, I don't know, somewhere in a cave and or exiled to Mallorca, like was the White Sox had long planned. By the time that's going through, so I should be fine.
Because our friends over from the 108, they put on a poll on Twitter. Before or after November 5th, the White Sox hire a new manager. I still feel before November 5th because that's the beginning of the GM meetings. And I believe you, James, that Chris Getz would like to have the manager situation resolved before he heads to Arizona. But it was fascinating to see in that poll that the majority of White Sox fans participating in that Twitter poll think it's going to be after November 5th. So going into the GM meetings, the White Sox wouldn't have a manager.
I think that like some sort of complication would have to come up where like somebody they were going to hire like dropped out or, something came up. Like I think something unusual would have to happen for not to be by the GM meetings, but.
And, well, Chris Getz's history with minor league managers, not out of the question.
Nothing's out of the question in this organization. I'm ready for anything at all times.
But yeah, like a Carlos Beltran or Wally Backman type thing of just, on second thought, we retract our offer.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality bikes, which might lead to another discovery. Getting back on the saddle isn't always comfortable. Good news is Sierra has massage guns. And chafe wipes, too. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
All right, so you can pick your manager. We walked through the decisions that you would have to make with impending free agents, the club options, and arbitration. So now this is where you could wheel and deal. The trades, the free agent targets, who you could realistically target for the White Sox with the payroll. And when it comes to trades, this is where I am most exciting to read everyone else's offseason plans, Jim. When it comes to Garrett Crochet and how participants for the Sox Machine offseason plan project use Crochet in whatever deals that they mock with other teams to help bolster the farm system or maybe the roster, or how many plans say, forget Chris Getz, I think the White Sox should keep Garrett Crochet to at least start the first half of the 2025 season. He seems to be the biggest trade piece the White Sox have going to this offseason.
Yeah, and with the way that Dylan Cease's trade market unfolded very slowly, and then, spring training, finally a deal is made, and it's a little bit underwhelming or pitching forward for a team that really needs position players. And even a year later, Getz is saying like, I probably could have done any better because teams just aren't willing to give up for pitchers. Like, I am curious what the divide is going to be between off-season plan project proposals and realities versus what Getz is actually able to pull off. I mean, the work of the trade deadline, I guess, didn't inspire a whole lot of confidence in terms of, teams might be able to deal with, or like the way that like it seemed like veteran general managers worked them over a little bit, and getting like Tommy Edman for free was a pretty good stroke of genius by by Andrew Friedman, and just being able to only give up Miguel Vargas for Kopech, and among players with immediate futures, potential futures on the Dodgers team. Like Miguel Vargas goes out, and Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman come in, and they're playing big roles in October. Like, that didn't inspire a whole lot of confidence for Getz's ability to deal with the market. But I guess the good news is that, being a whole winter, being no transaction deadlines that he's pressured by, aside from like spring training, which is a soft deadline. I would hope that he might have learned something from the way conversations went in July, and hope that it gives him a productive base to start with going into the winter.
James, you've talked about how the Dodgers still could be interested in acquiring Garrett Crochet this offseason. They made it to the World Series. We'll talk about the World Series in a moment. Despite the struggles at starting pitching for them, but what they're doing in the postseason will not work in a 162-game regular season. Anything else from this postseason, or what you see from other teams, could maybe possibly pick up the phone and call Chris Getz about Garrett Crochet? Or is the expectation from the White Sox is there's going to be a ton of interest in Garrett Crochet this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be pretty wide. I just think that fits the Dodgers type, and one that they are pretty active in moving from their system because they can generate so much. So, I mean, the same is kind of true of the Padres, and they're a logical fit as well. But also Crochet and being kind of like this max stuff dude that one could kind of blow up, which is what they collect a lot of, and kind of this elite raw materials where they could make tweaks to it, or tweak the usage in some way. Not that he wasn't already building out his arsenal here, but he just seems like their kind of project in a lot of ways, where I think, and especially with the White Sox kind of dealing with the Dodgers so much, I think it tilts a lot of the expectation towards them. But yeah, I think a lot of teams could be, worrying on him, and probably will resume it once they shop around the offseason, which they intend to. I was trying to think of like who else on the team like could get traded. Like Luis Robert could get traded, but I think we all understand like why it wouldn't be like particularly efficient to do it this offseason, like when he basically had the worst year ever, even counting some years where he was hurt. I wouldn't like it. I'm not in favor of it in any official way, but like I could see just the argument for Davis Martin, because you have a lot of starting pitchers, theoretically. He's 27, so he's like a little like standard deviation older than like the rest of the group that you're gathering there. And, maybe he's more mid to back end ceiling, someone who's kind of built up through, development and his own, curiosity and building up his body and little things he's done to bit better, but wasn't like, he's not like this lost first round pick that they, had always had these monster tools that they finally got online, but more somebody who's a kitchen sink guy at the end of the day with what he's done. So I haven't heard anything on that. Just looking at the roster and be like, who would someone want based on their contract situation? And, just someone who has a lot of control would fit in a win now window as versatile. He seems more like that, whereas they're not going to move from Cannon and Thorpe that just make no sense, or Ramos and Vargas, or guys like they're actively trying to build around. Like Martin's the only one who's kind of now, until they add some veterans who they obviously shop at the deadline, and like, the obvious assets like Crochet and Robert, he's the one that strikes me as like maybe a little bit different set, but I don't know. I think Crochet is like the big thing, and otherwise it's a lot of hoping guys come back to camp and play better.
Let me follow up, James. For those that are wondering about buying, like, do you think that the White Sox front office would flip any of the prospects that they have to try to find a core piece to the roster?
No. I think they're still in kind of the talent acquisition mode, as the way they've described it. I mean, there's theoretically things that could fit. It just seems so unlikely that is, how buyers would come to them with things that they want, but also want to, I don't know, what contender who is giving them prospects really wants to we really think we can get George Wolko to hit his ceiling, and the White Sox are going to move off of that project. It's just it seems like it's a lot harder to see it coming together than, I mean, it's hard enough, to talk to any person in the front office. They talk about so much of their work is just building the research for trades that don't happen. It's gonna be hard enough to find the right match for Crochet. I think that kind of lower probability stuff of where they're sending prospects out to get prospects in, it would take too many things to line up to really easily foresee it.
So that moves over to free agent targets and who realistically could be targets for the White Sox. Jim, I liken the White Sox upcoming offseason for Chris Getz to walking to the Target and shopping in that first section that you see when you walk into the store with all the tchotchkes that range between $1 and $5. That's where the White Sox are shopping. Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, they're going straight to the electronics department. They're spending the big bucks. The White Sox are not.
Yeah, Chris Getz is buying the past holiday clearance rack and hoping he remembers that he has it when the holiday rolls around. Probably. I think the two names that jumped out to me is Dallas Keuchel and Yasmani Grandal being free agents again, and just picturing a situation where they both come back and it's just bleak, and it's kind of like punishment for them. Just you caused this. Come back and clean up your mess. My name is Earl style. Just atone for what you've done, and maybe we can unlock ourselves here. But yeah, it's pretty bleak, and I think, when I looked at some of the names that might make sense up and down the positions, I just wonder if you're going to see the same kind of idea where Getz tries defense again, and maybe this time he gets it right. Since Yoan Moncada, was one of the pillars of that defense first approach, and then missed basically in the entirety of the season. That kind of helped it fall apart. But I wonder, given that, there was some merit to it, you could kind of see how it might happen. I wonder if he tries it again, just to help the pitchers out, if nothing else.
Here's my shopping list, and it's in no priority. I don't have these ranked in which I think is the biggest need. It's not when the White Sox are good after the 2021 season, we had that list set. They need a right fielder.
Right fielder, yeah.
They never did.
They always need one, but yeah.
Again?
James wrote recently for SoxMachine.com, so what are the White Sox doing in right field? Right field is in the shopping list. Catcher for the White Sox as well. I know there's a lot of people that are high in Edgar Caro. James has got a feature coming up on Sox Machine about the catching situation for the White Sox. They still may want some more depth because as of right now, even if you do have Corey Lee and Edgar Caro, who's the third catcher for the White Sox? I don't know. Who is the third catcher in the system right now? Is it Turner?
He's at the AFL, so that's good for him. But Hackenberg had a really bad offensive year. Chucky Robinson was the only average or better framer and blocker that they suited up all season, but also hit worse than Martin Maldonado. So he doesn't necessarily seem like a guy you prioritize keeping on the 40-man roster over the offseason, but they also prioritize him pretty hard during the season in a way. So I don't know if they really value his defensive chops a bit more, but in general, the vibe I get is that not 100% sold on Caro being the opening day guy or being super ready because he missed the last 5 weeks. They didn't get kind of the look at him extended to AAA or late season cameo at the majors that they would have wanted for that. And Corey Lee was already struggled in a lot of ways defensively and offensively the last 4 months to where I don't think that they would regret, or it doesn't seem like they would regret adding a veteran stopgap, because one, it could fill the gap for Caro, and if Corey Lee is struggling, or it gives you a real option of just someone you can rely on the backup Caro as opposed to like if Lee is, doing 500 OPS and not blocking or framing well and, still has growth to go in game planning. He has a AAA option left, so it's not, out of the realm to put him down there again, even if, he's obviously had plenty of AAA reps already. It's not closed off to that asset wise.
Yeah, so for position players, catcher, right field, I put in first base because in my plan, Andrew Vaughn is going to be the primary DH for the White Sox. One starting pitcher and a reliever. If you want to go like the John Braby route, someone cheapish, maybe another veteran arm to help out with the White Sox bullpen situations if they ever do get a save situation or high leverage situation. So that's what I have on my shopping list. Am I missing anything, Jim? Again, I got 5 items: catcher, right field, first base, starting pitcher, and reliever. Is there anyone that I'm missing?
Well, we talked before recording. You mentioned Amaya was your opening day shortstop, so I feel like you can at least explore some options there.
Yeah, well, what's the problem with that?
I mean, he's a fine defender. I don't know if he's
not a Jacob Amaya guy. Is that what we're saying?
Running out there at shortstop, and that's your plan in October, and it doesn't change. It seems more like you could invite some healthy competition into that space, and it wouldn't rock the apple cart too hard.
Are you not seeing the numbers that Colson Montgomery is putting up in the Arizona Fall League, James? Those numbers totally count. They totally matter. It's totally going to work out this time around in 2025.
They're encouraging numbers.
You need to be flexible at shortstop.
All right. I mean, you're just Jacob has
totally going to work this time.
Amaya just has the nice week and a half of being the starting shortstop before the 15-year reign of Colson. If that's your plan, that's your plan. I don't know.
I would just point out that Brooks was here, and I'm a big for the bald eagles among us that think he can be something. I would not rule him out.
Wait a second. Is the Brooks Baldwin fan club the Bald Eagles? Is that a thing? Are we starting that?
Sure, I guess. I just threw it out there to start. Opening offer.
I kind of like it. How about you, James? Are we calling?
I was more unsettled by like the marker of like a section of White Sox fandom being a reference to the guy who hangs himself in Shawshank Redemption.
Kind of fitting. Brooks is my starting second baseman, Jim.
Okay.
In my offseason plan project. So my projected
so he's already
roster.
Spent. Okay, gotcha.
It's spent. Like my middle infield right now is not inspiring. Jacob Amaya, Brooks Baldwin. Let's not embarrass ourselves defensively. Let's also remain incredibly flexible because we know it's going to be a revolving door up the middle because I'm not certain. I mean, if I had it my way, Willie Adames, like Sam Dunk, like go sign Willie Adames, White Sox. That would make me so happy. It's just, I don't think it's realistic.
Lenin said he was going down to Venezuela to work on his shortstop defense. He wants to be back in the mix.
There you go. That's why I got to have a revolving door. Jacob Amaya, Lenin Sos. We're still in discovery mode.
I bring that up just so I can bring up Lenin's Venezuelan league numbers. He's hitting 585, 972 down there.
There's your first baseman.
There you go. Yeah, no kidding.
The International League thought Lenin took it out rough on them.
So with my shopping list, before I'm making any additions, in extreme difficulty with an $80 million budget, to find 5 more players, and I'm sorry, 6 more players, because I still have a bench spot open, but I could figure that out in the 40-man roster. Knowing that I'm trading Garrett Crochet, I got $18 million left, Jim. In normal difficulty, I got $56 million left. So with a $113 million payroll, $56 million to figure out 5 or 6 positions, that's not a lot of cash to do that. Extreme difficulty, it's like barely any cash at all. Are there any targets out there, Jim, in the clearance aisle that you think might be worthwhile for the White Sox to pursue?
Not really. Like in terms of there aren't any names that are jumping out to me as like, oh, buy low, and like those tend to be the guys who end up getting decent deals from other teams with a bit more ambition. But I think their strengths are that, if you're looking for an infielder, like I would say Gio Urshela might be somebody who's just like competent defensively. If you're looking to build that defense first type infield to provide some order and to not have it all in Miguel Vargas or, Brian Ramos being opening day ready or, just being plus defensively, like he's somebody who jumped out to me as like, yeah, that would be competent and also provide some offense and be along the lines of what Getz trying to do last year. But given the market, I could see him doing just fine. Like you kind of along the lines of like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, like he has his fans. I think Urshela has his fans. Is just somebody who brings a good glove and a good effort, and the bat's always enough to hold down a spot, even if it's towards the bottom of the order. So like that's the kind of player I'm talking about when I see somebody who's like, yeah, not bad, and then realize that you look at the rest of the third base market and like, probably not. Like he probably won't be around at a price where the White Sox are interested. So I think that's what makes it particularly difficult. Also scrolling the list of names and just seeing like how many former White Sox are on there. Like I mentioned Grandal and Keuchel, but there's also Tim Anderson. And that's a level of sad. Eloy Jimenez is there. Moncada's there. Tommy Pham. Your reunion could be in the cards. And that's, I think, another thing I'm kind of bracing for is like James McCann would theoretically be the kind of fit for a second catcher. If you're not looking for offense and you're looking for game planning and somebody who has like an arm kind of like Corey Lee's and you know what he brings, except like his White Sox career was so good and so unexpected that it feels like, when they brought back Elvis Andrus and being like, he's not going to do that again. And sure enough, he didn't. Like, it just feels like you're going back to the well for James McCann at the very end. But that was the other name that jumped out in terms of former White Sox, but also kind of fits and have could have mutual appeal. It would be obviously be a step down for McCann, leaving the Orioles for the White Sox. But mutual goals, playing time, forgiving playing time. I could see McCann being the type of player the White Sox could end up with.
Anyone that you see in the free agent list, James, that you think could be interesting for the White Sox?
Boy, do I have something that will set the listener base on fire. Maybe it doesn't require a major league deal, but maybe this is the type of scale of ad that you should be priming yourself to get excited to. Did you know that Edward Olivares was a solid plus hitter against right-handed pitching? Or not right-handed pitching, that would be good. Left-handed pitching for 2022 and 2023 at the Royals over the span of like 300 bats, like a solid 115 guy. Strangely, everything collapsed last year in Pittsburgh, but everyone has their down years. The White Sox of that all should know. Ideal platoon partner with your four left-handed right field options of various in size and shapes and notes of excitement. Probably due to lack of competent hitters, just becomes a regular right-handed threat. Maybe is an NRI. That seems like the sort of guy who, not like hitting left-handed pitching is their biggest challenge, but they are very left-handed now with Benintendi and all the rights and Fletcher, and seems like somebody who would find platoon opportunities pretty regularly and also just get Peter principled into like 400 plate appearances if he got stuck here.
Yeah, problem with Olivares. I'm looking at the list of teams he's homered off of. Who he leads, or which team he's homered off the most?
Definitely something that overly influenced my idea of how good he is.
7 homers against the White Sox. The Twins and Tigers are next with 3.
That's right, baby. He was built to play here. He sees that uniform, he just gets his juices going.
All right. So really inspiring targets for the White Sox. Some names that I jotted down. On the catcher front, Elias Diaz is a free agent. He was a former All-Star for Colorado. Career 695 OPS over 10 seasons. He was a good framer in 2024. He was 2 runs above average according to Baseball Savant. So that's someone that I would float. I mean, if they were comfortable floating $4 million to Martin Maldonado, would Diaz accept $4 million? And that's your tandem Diaz and Lee.
I thought about him. I saw the framing numbers and started to think like, this guy's too good.
Immediately. There's just no way. On the power side, Rowdy Tellez, after the whole situation with Pittsburgh, could that be an option for space DH?
Is he going to blow away what Sheets would give you for, probably a slightly higher price?
Does he have a higher ceiling than Gavin Sheets? I would argue that I think he does, at least based on track record, right? Like, he's hit over 30 homers recently.
Yeah, he's also a big dude who's going to be 30 in March, so...
I would say like the power upside is with Tellez, like the everything else holding his game together is probably Sheets.
Yeah, it'd be nice if he had slugged 400 in a year since the 35 homer season.
Damn, Tellez has only hit 13 homers in back-to-back seasons since hitting 35 with Milwaukee.
I'm getting you both ways. Some guys are too good, some guys are too bad. What do I want?
I mean, it sounds like a White Sox player already. Tellez, we'll take him off the list. Another name that I'm surprised he played this well, Randall Grichuk for Arizona. Shockingly good for them this year.
Too good.
Too good, you're saying. He had 875 OPS and 140 OPS plus.
I think I mentioned him like in the article. Is like he'd be perfect like last year. Like he played on a like 1 year, $2 million contract, like exactly sort of range like the White Sox would like add. He like, because the Diamondbacks were a good offense, he got to really just be like the lefty platoon guy, whereas like, he probably would have gotten 450 plate appearances here and faced a ton of right-handers and probably not been as good. But because he like was like a 140 WRC plus guy in that role, I mean, there's not a lot of hitters. It could be a multi-year market even. Like he's not super old. I legitimately think like he'd be perfect addition, like mix wise, but he feels a little too good.
All right. Well, those are the three names that I was circling on my list. Two good, one not good enough to cancel out Gavin Sheets. So I'll keep searching.
That's the one that sounds right then, because it's
Rowdy Tellez.
Like it's in blackjack. If you bust, you lose. Whereas like if you go under, you can kind of keep making it work and piece things together.
Got it.
I'll throw one more name out there because like he's in this weird mode where like he might not do enough well to hold down one position, but like he's good at being on base, which the White Sox sorely need. Mark Canha. See,
I looked at him and I thought too good.
He's like in the Tommy Pham territory though, in terms of age, like different, he comports himself differently, carries himself differently. I think, from what I understand, a much friendlier, affable fellow, but in terms of like getting into his later 30s without like, huge power, there is a case of like, teams being like, oh, why aren't we pitching this guy more? He does get hit by pitches frequently though, to kind of boost his OBP. So he's got that going for him, but that's one guy I could see like not finding a deal to his liking and then being on like the Robbie Grossman Pham territory of just, if you need a good OBP guy, another team might want, whether it's in May or July, could be flippable.
He's someone I could really imagine, like he's pinch hitting in the DS and the like national announcer says, he actually started the season with the White Sox, if you can believe it. And like that, that feels like that would fit.
7 homers in 125 games.
All right, so Mark Canha, come on down. Well, I can't wait to see everyone's offseason plans. I can't wait to see what you guys have in mind when it comes to trades and free agent targets. I'm sure we're going to see some plans to bring back old friend Matt Davidson. Sounds like Diane Viciedo has also entered free agency in Japan. Maybe he could bring the tank back. Be fascinating to see what he could do back in the major leagues. But yeah, I can't wait to see everyone's offseason plans. Again, that starts on Thursday, October 24th. You can go to soxmachine.com, follow the instructions, write up your posts. We'll make sure that everything looks good before we publish it for you guys on soxmachine.com.
Unless you do such a bad job formatting it and it reflects the amount of care you put into it, then I will publish it as is.
That is a threat with Jim. Take your time with your offseason plan to get everything sorted out. Before we wrap up this podcast episode real quick, it is the World Series. That will be starting on Friday, October 25th. It is the New York Yankees against the Los Angeles Dodgers. such a storied rivalry, especially when it comes to the World Series. But this is the first time in our lifetimes, gents, that the Yankees and Dodgers are squaring off in the World Series. Shockingly, there's many old friends in this World Series for the Chicago White Sox, for both the Dodgers and Yankees. Lots of ex-White Sox players. But so much has been made about this World Series. There's even, great guides out there as well that you can find, like the Haters Guide to this World Series. Some people either love this World Series matchup or they completely hate this World Series matchup. James, how are you feeling about this World Series matchup? How excited are you for Yankees and Dodgers? Are you going to try to watch these games when you're in Spain?
Not like super hard. I'm here going with my wife's family. I'm trying to impress people. Not the guy like, what's Rhode Island doing? Like at breakfast on like a Wednesday. Like that's not the vibe I'm trying to set. So I think it's funny that it happens right after like Diamondbacks Rangers, where it's very the randomness of postseason. They need to do something. It's too chaotic to like now we get like the most like blue bud kind of chalk finals ever, and we have to find whether or not we're happy about this or not, or what systemic issue we feel this is like representing a failure. And so I think it's pretty cool like to have those kind of caliber players. Like after if there's one thing that everyone united against for the last 7 years, it's complaining that Ohtani wasn't like on a big enough stage, and now he's on the biggest stage. So this seems fitting, even though if it'd be cooler to see him pitching as part of it. If there's one organization that's going to insanely make him throw out of the bullpen at an opportune and frankly unnecessary time late in the series, it would be the Dodgers. So fingers crossed for chaos. But I think seeing Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani in the World Series, I don't think we can gripe too much about that, even if no one actually feels that happy about either side winning. The true way I think any MLB viewer, if you want to watch postseason and be happy, it's to hate every single team. Every single series, you see someone lose, their entire goals dashed, their fan base demoralized. There's no way to lose. Just hate everybody. There's always somebody to take joy in the death of.
Okay. Jim, how about you? Follow up that. How are you feeling about this Yankees and Dodgers World Series?
Baseball is a game of failure, and so if you love failure, this is the sport for you. Just I like it. I tend to like seeing teams that try to win the World Series get rewarded versus teams that try to win like 85 games and back into it, which, is a valid strategy sometimes when you see, the way the Dodgers have flamed out in previous winters, the way the Padres, despite all their efforts, like, having like not a hit rate they wanted, given all of the effort and transactions they put into getting to the postseason and not making the World Series yet. So there's a valid reason why teams don't go all out for it, but it's cool when the Yankees get Juan Soto, and Juan Soto's now been traded by two teams, even though he's going to be a Hall of Famer basically, unless something terrible happens. And every team should want him. Yet two teams thought they could do better without him, and so the Yankees being the team that gets them, while I guess unfortunate for a lot of fans, seeing a team that Juan Soto is on get rewarded for having Juan Soto, I think is good for the soul a little bit, for just if you're interested, invested in individual talents, being on teams that support them. So that's why I'm pretty happy about it. Just, I don't care who wins really, but I'm excited to see hopefully a good series and a lot of drama. I think if it were a case where this is the third time in 4 years these two teams are meeting up, then you'd start thinking about salary caps or salary floors and that being a bigger part of the discussion. But for the time being, given that it has been rare and baseball has been random enough to thwart the best of intentions and the most capitalized of intentions, I think it's more or less fine that 1 year as a treat you see the two best teams. When one of them is going to win it, and you're going to be feeling that was one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball all year. So the right champion was crowned.
If you can't get up for the highest leverage innings of the season being pitched by Tommy Canley, Tim Hill, Jake Cousins, Michael Kopech, and Daniel Hudson. Something wrong with you, not with the game.
Ratings wise, because Major League Baseball is doing everything that they can to show people that they can draw ratings, especially with how dire the situation is when it comes to local broadcasts, and they'll get more clarity in mid-November with the Diamond Sports Group and their bankruptcy hearing that they'll be having on November 15th. This is going to be a well-watched World Series. Like, the ratings are going to be high with the Yankees and Dodgers, especially in Japan. Dodgers have been drawing huge numbers in Japan, television ratings-wise, comparably to how many people watch the Super Bowl in the United States of America. So at least in Japan, this is going to be well-watched, and I'm excited. There's so many big names: Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Yankees, Judge, and Soto. Like, it just huge stars in this World Series. I'm really excited to see how it shakes out. Game 1 again starts on Friday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Garrett Cole will take the ball for the Yankees against Jack Flaherty. That game's in Los Angeles. Game 2 will be Saturday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Yoshinobu Yamamoto will start for the Dodgers. It's to be announced for the Yankees. It could be old friend Carlos Rodon making that start for the Yankees in Game 2. Games 3, 4, and 5 will be in the Bronx. That's October 28th, 29th, and 30th. Garrett Cole would be lined up as a projected starter in Game 5. And then Games 6 and 7 go into November 1st and November 2nd, and those games are in Los Angeles. We'll see if either team has enough starting pitching, if this series goes deep, whether it goes 6 or 7 games. I'm concerned about the Dodgers. They've been really using that bullpen to get as far as they have. I think Dave Roberts has been doing a terrific job managing his ball club with how shorthanded he is in the starting pitching front. But let's make our World Series predictions, guys. James, let's start with you. Who do you got in the World Series, Yankees or Dodgers?
I did not know this question was coming. I would say the Dodgers. I don't know why. I just got a feeling. It seems like their offense has been coming together recent. Max Muncy's been hot. Freddie Freeman surely will have a new bionic ankle by Friday. I feel like if Ohtani really gets good going, that's the kind of someone who can't be stopped. Though same could be said of Judge and Soto. I just like the Dodgers White Sox relievers better than I like the Yankees White Sox reliever. That's my touch.
Jim, how about you? Dodgers or Yankees?
I think Yankees, just because it seems like everything's gone Dave Roberts' way. So if you believe in some regression coming back to bite him, all the pitching changes he's had to make and all of them working out pretty well, or at least like his bets on leverage working out and not being really tested in close games because of all the blowouts in the NLCS that I could see, just a bill being paid in the World Series. And so that's why I think I'm leaning Yankees, but they have some problems of their own to consider. But I think I would say whose pitching side is simpler, and I think the Yankees have it a little bit easier trying to figure out where their innings are coming from. So that's kind of how I'm leaning after all the innings that have been thrown to this point.
I think that's a good point, Jim. I agree with you on the starting pitching front that the Yankees should have the advantage, but I love this Dodgers lineup. And they just have a surprising hero step up, especially in these postseason series. I could see Max Muncy having a hell of a series, especially those 3 games at Yankee Stadium, just being a monster and taking advantage of that short porch in right field. So because of the deeper lineup, I'm going to agree with James, and I'm going to pick the Dodgers to win the World Series in 2024. And Ohtani, already a mega superstar, finally gets his first World Series ring. Should be a great World Series and more baseball to watch, quality baseball to watch until the season is over. And then the offseason really kicks into high gear as the GM meetings begin in early November in Scottsdale, Arizona. But that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Good luck, everyone, with your offseason plan projects. Can't wait to read them on SoxMachine.com. You could subscribe to the Sox Machine podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You could also watch the show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. If you enjoy our work and would like to help support Sox Machine as we get ready for the off season, we have plans of going to the winter meetings down in Dallas, Texas. We're already working on sending James down to Arizona for spring training. You can sign up at patreon.com/SoxMachine to gain full access to our White Sox coverage. Monthly plans start at $5. We also have additional tiers of support. We also have some spots open in our Veterans Committee as well that you can be part of our group chat, where we share even more insight and some of the gossip and rumors that we are hearing about the White Sox managerial search in that group chat. You could again acquire at patreon.com/SoxMachine. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.